Hello, I'm Kevin Morby, and these are Records in My Life.
Oh my God, oh my Lord, oh my God, oh my Lord, gotten too weak for this heavy load. Carry a glass on wherever I go.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us what's new and exciting.
Well, in Vancouver tonight. That's,
Sold out.
sold out, yeah. Very excited. It's going to be good. I don't think I've played here for 2 or 3 years, so it's exciting.
Vancouver loves you.
I love
Sold
Vancouver.
out. So let's talk about the album.
Okay. It's called Oh My God.
Yeah.
It just came out. It's a record I started writing about 2 years ago, and it took me about 2 years to make it in between being on the road all the time. I made it with Sam Cohen, who's going to open the show and then also play in my band tonight. And we made it in New York, and I'm pretty proud of it.
And you moved to New York at a very young age. You were inspired. You do a song about the Ramones, which is great, one of your songs.
Yes, yeah.
What albums really remind you of New York City and helped you move there? Because it's got great history.
That's a great question. I remember, so when I moved there, I'd only ever been on one flight in my life. So I took the Amtrak train. I took one flight when I was a kid, and I was scared of it. And I knew I was moving out of Kansas City, and I wanted to go there slowly. Basically, in case I got too scared, I could just easily turn around and go back home. So I took this train there, and I remember the whole time I listened to Chelsea Girls by Nico, and that became one of my favorite records. So when I think of that album, I think of that train ride, and I think about coming into New York for the first time. And it's such a, she's so, sort of synonymous with Velvet Underground, who are synonymous with New York. So it was a perfect New York City record.
And what's the perfect New York City soundtrack for you? Doesn't have to be a movie soundtrack, but band.
Velvet Underground, Velvet Underground, Ramones, I think Patti Smith, the early Dylan stuff, like the Greenwich Village Dylan stuff. It's kind of never ending with a place like New York, A lot of my heroes at least did a little bit of time there, but those are the big ones, especially Velvet Underground. I don't think anyone's more New York than that band.
And tell us about a recent discovery that you're listening to now. It can be a young band, an older band, something you're really into.
That's a great question. Well, this year, my good friend Jessica Pratt put out a new album. I'm a big fan of hers, and also very proud to call her a friend. So I love her new record. But someone I just discovered, there's a band called Bonny Doon that my friend Jeremy put out on Woodsist, and my girlfriend Katie just toured with them as her backing band. They're a really great band, and she listens to them all the time. She calls it her Daily Doon.
Oh, wow.
And they're very good. It's Bonny, Bonnydoon. And yeah, they're from Michigan. They're from Detroit, and they're really great.
Nice. And you started, I'm hoping my research is right this time, but you did start a label of your own, and you've put out a couple of artists. Can you tell us a bit about a couple of records?
Yeah, it's basically just a curation of Woodsist records. It's like my curation of it. It's called Mare, like the female horse, Mare. And I basically started it to put out my friend Shannon Lay's record, which is very good. It's called Living Water, and she's someone who I saw playing around Los Angeles a lot while I was living there, and it didn't seem like, anyone was trying to put a record out, so I sort of volunteered because I thought people needed to hear it. And I actually just heard today that she signed to Sub Pop, so that's very exciting. Yeah.
Let's go back to high school. I know you finished high school on your own. You did the GED thing, right? Because you moved as a young teen, I think, in New York?
Correct.
So, but what bands were you in bands in high school, and what type of songs or albums were you really into?
So, this is a very formative time in my life, and music really made a big impression on me. But at that time, I was listening, it's kind of like there's two categories. There's a lot of contemporary music I was listening to, and then a lot of sort of legendary music. And the legendary music was like Neil Young and Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen and Nico and stuff like that. But the contemporary stuff, which really helped guide me, was, I was a huge fan of the Mountain Goats in early high school. I loved their album, All Hail West Texas, made a big impression on me because it was home recorded, and it kind of showed me that you could sort of be just anyone, and, you didn't have to have too much money or anything. You just make an album if you have a story to tell. That was a big album for me. The Glow Part 2 by the Microphones was a very huge record for me. Let's see what else. The first record I ever bought on vinyl, I actually bought 2 albums. I bought Bikini Kill's Pussy Whipped and Silver Jew's American Water. So I'm very happy about those being my first 2 vinyl purchases.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty stellar records.
Yeah,
And you're young to be buying.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a record store. It's still there called Love Garden, which is kind of a magical place that when I discovered it as a young teen, it sort of changed my life. And my friend Kelly is the owner, and he owned it then. And he showed me a lot of stuff, and he's still the owner today. And kind of the place you walk into, and they have posters all over the place of every band that's ever passed through Lawrence, Kansas. And if you just tell them like, oh, I like Bob Dylan or something, they'll say, well, if you like that, you can I'll show you a whole new world.
Well, who's the band? Lawrence noise band that came. Do you remember?
I don't know. I mean, the
Putting
Get
on
Up
spot.
Kids are from there, and the Anniversary. They're certainly not noise bands, but
Right.
there's a band called Expo 70. Maybe you're thinking of them. I don't know.
I can't remember, but I know this goes back 25, 30 years ago. There was
okay.
a Lawrence, Kansas band, and they played a couple of shows here. They made it big enough to tour.
Interesting. Maybe it's perhaps a little bit before my time.
Maybe. Who knows? So you did a mini kind of documentary for your album.
Yeah,
On that.
yeah.
So
It's sort of like a surreal. It's sort of like short film, half documentary, half surrealism, I guess.
Are there any soundtracks which you like, film soundtracks, which you really adore?
That I really love?
Yeah.
I love the film soundtrack actually to Mystery Train by the Jim Jarmusch movie. It's really good. It's a lot of like amazing Elvis songs. I think until I saw that, I never really took Elvis's music seriously or thought to listen to it just because it's so ingrained in everything. It's kind of like the Beatles or something, and then you have a moment where you see it through a different filter and suddenly makes a lot of sense. But I really love that soundtrack. I love the Rushmore soundtrack. When I was a kid and I got into that movie, it made a huge impression on me. The music and the dialogue and everything else. On the spot, those are the first 2 that come to me.
Those good,
Thanks.
great ones. And last one, kind of maybe an odd question, but I was just, when I was researching, connecting the dots, there are a few musicians that were playing with Cass McCombs, like Rob Barbado, I think, produced one of your records. And
My
a few
first
other
2.
guys. So do you have a Cass, since you're in that circle, do you have a favorite Cass McCombs album?
Yeah, I do. I love Cass McCombs. I haven't listened to the latest few. I haven't really sat with them yet, but I need to. I'm a huge fan. But I'm very obsessed with Catacombs and Wit's End and Big Wheels and others. I really love those albums. But it was really Catacombs. And, I'd heard his music and I thought it was good, but it never really transcended with me. And then one day I was actually driving and my dad had it playing in his truck.
Really? That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And there's this one song called My Sister, My Spouse. That's
Right.
an incredible song. And there's something about it. We're just driving down the highway and I wasn't aware who it was. And I was like, what is this song? And my dad's, it's Cass McCombs. I read about him on some blog that also wrote about you. And I burned a CD. And
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Your dad was reading a blog about you. That's
That's
really cool.
And he made a CD that had it like mimicked the album art and everything. He put it on there. He had the little CD maker, which is funny. But so and then it was like that song just opened up that world to me, and then I became pretty obsessed with some of those records. And then I met Rob, who was playing bass for him at the time, and through some mutual friends and through playing music, and he produced my first record.
Great, thank you. Wealth of information. We really appreciate your time on the
Yeah.
show, and we like to ask our guests for any words of wisdom or advice.
My words of wisdom and advice are just you can't do much wrong when listening to music, or with making it either. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe.
And if you're really feeling it, please hit us up on Patreon. Cheers.